This is Power Athlete Radio. With your hosts, Denny K, Professor Booty, and the Luke Summers. And now, toes forward, hips locked, shoulders set, and retract those scapulars. It's time for some knowledge bombs.
What's going on, Power Athlete Nation? This is Denny. I'm excited. We got a great show for you. Joining us, as always, is the Luke Summers and Steve Playtech. What's going on, guys?
What's up, Denny?
What's happening, Denny?
And we got a special guest on the line, Jesse Burdick. What's going on?
Hey, guys. How are you?
What's going on, Jesse?
Excellent. Wellborn's out there. He's going to be joining us as soon as he wraps up a few things. But, Luke, let's just start with any updates regarding Wade's Wings.
I think we should just give a little insight onto what happened just before we started recording.
I agree 100% here.
So we dialed John in. John's one of the busiest fucking people around, and all we hear is screaming children, like kindergarten cop style. And we're trying to get the show rolling. He's like, hang on. I'm at the doctor. I got to give my kid some shots. So it was like, what kind of slaughter was going on the other end of that phone? His poor daughters are just getting shots at the doctor. He's trying to run a podcast. Mr. Multitask.
It's great.
Dude, you know, they always ask like the dads to hold those kids down.
Oh, yeah.
That's the worst because you just feel terrible, too. I know you said
you feel
you're
horrible.
a sicko. You pinch your kids and stuff, but your kids just looking at you like, what's going on?
I don't have that problem. I just got to take the dogs to the vet, and they just look at you and get shot.
And then they won't talk to you for the rest of the day. I mean, it's like you double-crossed them. You know, you try and butter them up and get them drinks and snacks, and they just give you that look like.
Wait, you're getting your kids drinks?
I know, Denny. What are you admitting to here?
Denny, this is a really interesting
like booze and tobacco to their kids after shots. I mean, that's what we do here. I thought that was normal.
Yeah, Jesse, that's how we do it in Chicago. You know, you're raised on Bloody Marys and cigars.
Chicago. Come on, honey, let's go out for a Bloody Mary and a cigar after your 3-year-old shots. You deserve it.
Exactly.
Now you're getting it.
All right, let's re-rail off this derail. What'd you ask me, Denny?
Wade's Wings.
Oh, dude,
where we at? I know we're kicking ass.
Yeah, we're crushing it. I think as of today, we're at like 22 grand, which is $8,000 away from our $30,000 goal. A couple all-star teams out there. CrossFit Freddie put this up on his page and he blasted up to first place. He's raised CrossFit One World has raised like $2,600. CrossFit South Bend and CrossFit Syndicate are in second and third place, just smashing it at 1,900 and 1,700 respectively. But we're getting an awesome response. It's the final push. We're putting in our shirt order literally today. We're going to get the shirts in about 7 to 10 business days, and then I'm going to spend a weekend packing them up and shipping them out so people have some gear to wear for the workout on the 12th of November. So we're crushing it. Just got to keep that final push going. So if you haven't donated, do it. If you haven't started a team, it's not too late. There's all sorts of legit shit to get around to earn in terms of raising some funds for this cause here.
So
Dude,
for idiots like me who don't know how to turn on computers, can you explain to some of the listeners how we can sign up and how we can donate? Where do we need to go? How do we get that done? Sure.
Fun fact, and we'll get right back to it. Jesse doesn't know how to turn on a computer. Or how to use his phone. So for those of you who are technologically impaired, go to the computer, hit the button that looks like a circle with a line through it. That turns it on. And then go to the interwebs. Go to wadesarmy.powerathletehq.com, and right there on that website, you're going to get a couple of options. You just click on the old picture that says either start a team, donate as an individual, or start a fundraiser. And once you get there, it's pretty point and click. But if you need any help, email wadesarmy@powerathletehq.com and they'll make it happen for you. So we're all ready to rock. Full support. We just got to get through this last climb and start and blast through that $30,000 mark.
Awesome.
Hey, going back to the shirt order, I have a friend who didn't write down the donation code that you get after you've donated, and when you go to place your shirt order, it asks for that code.
Listen,
is there any way to kind of
all you're gonna have to do, or I mean, your friend, just email that Wade's Army email address, and we'll get back to you. We have 3 people working on the fundraiser, and we'll be able to find it for you.
Okay.
So yeah,
cool. I'll let this person know that. Thanks.
If you lost that info, hit us up, and we'll be able to get it to you.
All right. How was the Germany seminar?
Oh, dude, it was the seminar itself was interesting. Jesse, have you done any international seminars yet?
No, I haven't had a chance to, but I've been asked to do a bunch, and I would really like to do it. I gotta assume it's kind of just the whole thing is a pretty surreal experience.
Well, it's interesting in terms of you speak with hundreds of people throughout the year in the States, whether it's through your gym, on the phone, customer service, at the store, at a seminar, and you just become so ingrained in the culture and how to manage the experience through that culture. And Germany is completely different. And, we rely on humor, which is clearly we're not funny, and it's pity laughs most of the time at the seminar. But
yes,
the German sense of humor is completely different. And, but so it was a struggle in the sense on that end. And, but communication was okay. Mostly English speakers. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be, just ride this one out and collect my cert and I'm on my way. But for anyone who's been to the seminar, we take a very deep dive into your assignment, which you have to complete Saturday night and turn in Sunday morning. And then we spend an hour or 2 reviewing it. And, hopefully the criticism came off as our attempt to educate. But a lot of the programs that were turned in needed to reevaluate. And then we even had 3 guys, and they were pretty good sports about it. But 3 guys turned in the exact same programming with intentionally different layouts and like different size paper and different, they went through a lot of effort to make it look like they didn't turn in the same thing. But we snagged them up on that. And but it was good. What was even better is Tex and I were out there running the show, and our host out there, Drake, he's on the level 1 staff, and him and his guys out at Reebok CrossFit Nuremberg, they know how to treat a seminar staff. They had coffee for us. They had coffee for everybody. They had lunch cooking up and everything, and then even got us some tickets to Oktoberfest, which was a blast.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I know Starrett's over there right now. He's been texting me and emailing me about he's kind of doing a Europe swing, and he's at the same place that you guys were just at, saying it's just amazing, but kind of the same thing. I mean, it's the biggest thing is, we feel as seminar staff that we're kind of on stage, whether we actually are or are not. That's kind of our stage. And when none of our materials working, I mean, you're like, man, that's killed everywhere else. Why isn't anyone laughing? They're just staring at me, and it can kind of throw you off. And Kelly's doing the same thing, where he's, saying some of the Kellyisms and all this other stuff, and it's just like crickets. Yeah, it's just crickets. And he's just like, I thought I was fun. Am I funny? Like, no, you're good. You're Kelly. You're quirky and funny. I'm like, they don't think I'm funny. They think they don't think I'm funny. Like, well,
I can totally hear the Kelly Starrett neurosis spinning right there.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, there's Jan. Hey, everybody, it's Jan.
John, Jesse's just bashing my accent.
Oh, is he? Well, I mean, come on, dude. I mean, Jesse, you met Denny. He was on the Bears skit on Saturday Night Live. He was the guy with the Ditka hat on, and he's actually in the new commercial right now for Discount Double Check, where he's got the grill class. So you got to stick with him a little bit.
We were just talking about that before the show started. Double check.
That's awesome.
How are the girls, John?
Oh, they're good. Today was their 2-year checkup. So Jamie was 37.5 inches, which, the doctor gives you a rough, you double whatever height they are at 2. So that puts Jamie at 6'3", I think, is what they tallied her out at. That puts Kelly at I think she was 5'11". or 5'10", I think, and they weighed, I think, like 32 and 29.5 pounds. So they weighed pretty good. Yeah, they were like 37 and 35 inches tall. So they did pretty good. And they passed all their little tests, and they're speaking and climbing and just like kids. But it's always funny to go into these like as new parents, you go into this like doctor's office, and the doctor's like asking you these questions, and you're like hoping to God that like your kids are normal, or at least like advancing properly. You're like kind of like looking for like a little reassurance, like we haven't completely fucked everything up, and yet. So the fact like, you're kind of like hoping like, oh, that's good. This is normal. They're doing things and they're playing and like, coming up with words, and they can point to stuff. And we've been putting a lot of work in, with the learning. And so it was good. And then you get a little validation. And then she's like, well, your daughters are, I think Jamie was like 100% in height and 100% in weight and like 90% in head. And then Killy was like 75. So she's like, well, based on the standards, they should probably be like 5'10" and 6'3". I was like, no way. She's like, well, that's a rough guesstimate, but we don't think that's accurate. I'm like, and then they go, well, it'll be somewhere between you and your wife. And I'm like, well, I'm 6'5" and my wife's 5'2". So anywhere between 5'2" and 6'5", I guess is a pretty safe bet. I'll believe that they're somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty safe estimate.
Yeah, I was like, I'm sure they'll weigh somewhere between 300 pounds and 30 pounds too in their life. Yeah, so it's
and hopefully not both.
Yes, yeah. Hope one isn't 30 and one's 300. The other one is there's a lot of interesting stuff coming out with vaccinations right now. And like there was a big thing on Facebook where, people are claiming that the government's now, claiming that some of the vaccinations are what's kind of leading to this autism thing. And so you go in there, and when the girls were born, they were born early, and they were like 4 pounds and 5 pounds. So they were really, really small. And I remember they came in the first day, they weren't even like 24 hours old, and they wanted to pump them full of all these, injections of, vaccinations. And I kind of freaked out a little bit. And I was like, I saw these big needles, and my little girls like fit in like the palm of my hand. I'm like, no, dude, we're not going to do this. So I waited until they were like 9 months old to start vaccinating them. And I only vaccinated them for things that I knew would kill them. So like things like chickenpox, kids need to get chickenpox. And I kind of have this idea that, or looking at the schedule, things that we got when I was born in 76, like, we only got vaccinated for things that were going to kill you, like tetanus is going to kill you, like polio. I mean, big things like that. So we kind of stuck with that. And so we would finish up the vaccination. So just as you guys called on my Skype on my phone, I was just about to hold down a 2-year-old that was about to get injected for DTaP, I think. So I was like, let me call you back because this is going to get spicy. So that's why I was running a little bit late. But the girls are doing good. And it's definitely, this whole vaccination thing is kind of a hot bud because, when we were born, Jesse, it was like 1 out of every 500,000 kids had autism, and now it's like 1 out of 50, and like parents are like losing their minds because it goes from like autism was something that Rain Man had to like 1 out of 50 kids. I mean, that's multiple kids in your neighborhood are diagnosed with autism. I mean, Josh Everett's going through it right now with his little boy, the Lift Up Luke Foundation, and people are looking around. Is it the vaccinations? Is it the food? Is it environmental? I mean, the other one they can't explain. And I called Lalonde on this and, tapped him in, and Lalonde has kind of taken this as his kind of personal mission to figure this thing out a little bit, which is good for anything. When you can get Lalonde motivated to check something out, that's good. I asked him, I was like, why is it attacking boys more than girls? And he's like, I have no idea, but there's something that we're missing, and it's a pretty scary deal, especially as a father, and you guys are all fathers too. So, the fear that you have is like, you're like, oh my God, like this is something that we got to figure out. So it's definitely, definitely puts it all in perspective when you go to that 2-year checkup and you're like, looking at the doctor being like, the kids are normal, right? Just let me tell me that they're normal, and they get a chance to kind of go on a little bit farther,
Yeah.
For sure, dude. Those vaccinations, I mean, I do the same thing. I only feel comfortable with them getting the ones that I did. But when you see all these alternate ones, even like a flu vaccination, it's like, fuck that. I don't. Well, I kind of feel the same way. It's like, I don't need you to give me any kind of medicine for every little thing that's out there. I want my immune system to kind of work on its own.
Well, the interesting one too is the way our bodies work is it's just like, stress is really everything. Like strength and muscle is a side effect of stress and adaptation of stress. I mean, you create the stress and all of a sudden your body responds to it. The same thing with the immune system. If you are constantly bombarding the immune system or not forcing it to work, I don't think the immune system strengthens in the same way. And it's kind of an interesting deal when you look. And like, I remember my experience with the flu shot was 1 year in the NFL, like the team pretty much mandated all of us to get, they were like, you don't have to get it, but we want every person to get a flu shot. So everybody got in line and got a flu shot. It was the only year I got sick from the flu, and I got really, really sick. And I was like, oh, maybe it's a flu shot that made me sick. And then we learned that the strain of flu that was going around was different than the strain that they injected us from. And at that point, I'm like, so wait a minute, the flu shot's just one strain that they're guessing is going to come out? And they were like, yeah. I'm like, no, I'm gonna take my chances. So I haven't got a flu shot and haven't got sick since. So I don't know if that's dumb luck or reasoning or what, but it goes back, I think, in terms of medicine and a lot of this stuff, like we really believe that there's this like absolute that like, okay, the flu shot's going to block you from getting the flu. And we don't really realize that there's a lot of guesswork and there's a lot of chance and, people are fallible. And this is the best guess that we can make at the time with the information we have. And it might not be right. And I think like, we put our faith so much in these things and like we put our faith and don't always be proactive. And, things like, like I think the big problem we're running into now is people are so overly cleaning their kids with like antibacterial soaps and cleaning and like making sure that they're in this non-germ environment. And if you think about it, you need germs. Like it's more like let your kid go out and eat some dirt. Don't wash their hands all the time. Like, like if you're going to wash their hands, don't use, they need bacteria, they need germs, and like let kids go out and swing and run around and drink out of hoses and, all this other stuff. And now it's filtered bottled water and everything's cooked and homogenized and pasteurized and, don't get dirty. Let me clean your hands. And like these kids are growing up in these sterile environments. And then all of a sudden, they don't have the defenses. They don't have the strength. They haven't built up the stress and the adaptation to necessarily fight the big things. And I think that's where some of this is coming from. I remember I don't ever remember washing. I remember the only time I washed my hands when I was a kid was when I took a shower, was in the pool. And I looked at the pool with chlorine as taking a shower. So I didn't take a shower after I got out of the pool either. Yeah. And then we played all day. Soccer, baseball, all these things. I don't ever remember washing my hands. I remember my mom would say to you, hey, wash your hands for dinner. And what would you do? You would just like slowly, like just splash them underneath the water for a split second. Soap. I never use soap. And so it's kind of a very, very different thing that now we're so paranoid and rightly so, man. There's a lot of crazy shit out there. And it's just, I just wonder if our desire to like do so much and be so proactive and so good is actually hindering us a little bit, And so, but unfortunately, nobody really knows. And it's just kind of a scary consequence, So I'll get off my soapbox and now bring it back to a more positive tone. So Jesse, how's your tan?
Jesse, you there?
We lose Jesse. We lost our guest.
I think he just doesn't know how to use his phone.
Oh, dude. I pressed the wrong button. I pressed mute.
Jesse, I asked, how's your tan? Is it looking good? Tan and shaved and.
Absolutely, man. There's for everyone who needs to know, it's called Melanotan 2. Go out there, dude, look it up on the interwebs, and you're all good, man.
Dude, but that's also an aphrodisiac, as what I remember.
It's amazing. It's actually like it's such a great let's just call it a research chemical because it's a family show. But it's remarkable. It's an aphrodisiac. It actually improves. It has a positive effect on insulin sensitivity. Makes you tan. Mobilizes fat mass. It's great, man.
Yeah, we had a guy at our CERT in Vegas a couple years ago that literally did the entire CERT without his T-shirt on. We were there like 8 a.m. Saturday morning, and this dude was just fucking shirt off and was not only probably like 215, 220, like 5'10", 5'11", pretty jacked, but was also, not only was he shredded, but he had probably the most amazing tan, like the type of tan that you would see in like a tanning salon commercial. And he literally just no shirt, just sat there, took the whole shirt train, no shirt, like didn't even bring a shirt with him for 2 days. Finally, I like looked at him and was like, dude, where the fuck did you get that tan? And he was like, Melanotan. The guy was like, my brother got diagnosed with skin cancer and they turned him on to this stuff and his tans look so good. I figured, you know what, I'll take this stuff. And I was like, You don't have to go to Hollywood to get a Hollywood tan because that thing is unbelievable. So
it is. It's great, and I mean, it was developed for positive reasons, and I mean, just like most stuff, then idiots like us get a hold of it and turn it into something else. But this is for people who actually are just very pale and who are very, it's not necessarily overexposure to sun that gets people, some sort of skin cancer. It's a reburn. So people who are very white, very pale, you keep getting this burn and burn and burn. That's when your body, negatively reacts to the sun. So people in like the Nordic region, way up in Iceland, up into the Arctic Circle, etc. They developed this so they would be able to take something. So when they would have exposure to the sun, because they go like 6 or 9 months without seeing the sun, and then they get and anything that they get, it's going to burn them, and then therefore cause them some adverse effects.
I think there are more tanning salons in like Norway and Sweden in there than anywhere, and those guys are. It's pretty hilarious. When we were in Norway, or in Sweden rather, they had like their very first sunny day, and like literally, man, there were like people like everywhere laying out. And the funnier part is they were like, this is our first sunny day. Everybody was tanner than hell. I mean, everybody's way more tan than me. And I was like, this is the first sunny day. It's like, no, dude, everybody goes to the tanning salon all day long, man. This is like you have to, you're going to be going into the post office with a machine gun.
Yeah. It's funny though. Belle and I were going somewhere to do a seminar, and Belle loaded up on the stuff early and took way too much. And what's interesting about that stuff is if you don't manage it properly, or you take more than you normally would, you can like change colors like 4 or 5 times during the day. So he took it and he gets this big rush and kind of turned this like really dark tan. I was like, whoa, dude, what the hell? And then he like got exposed to sun and he went like this black purple, and then it calmed down again. And we went back out in the sun and he went black purple again. And then it calmed down. I was like, what is going on with you? He's like, I think I just took way too much of that. The mulatto tan. It's killing me, man.
Dude, I saw the pictures from the Olympia. His tan was looking on point. I was actually going to comment. I was like, either he bought himself a tanning salon or a tanning bed in the house, like American Psycho style, or he found a better way to do it.
It's just so much a better, easier, more controlled way to do it with mulatto tan. And compared to everybody else, he looked well. There's no place to go to feel better about yourself in so many different ways, but like a trade show like the Olympia or like the Arnold Classic, I felt so normal and like good looking and just awesome. Just seeing some of the freaks just walking around, it's just amazing. And Belle looked like above normal compared to what was kind of walking around at the Olympia.
Well, it's like people train the entire like year to like show up to that thing in some like weird like deal. I remember when we went to the Mr. Olympia a couple years ago. I was like, dude, this is the strangest collection of people I've ever seen. Like, where are these people been hiding? Like these people come out like once a weekend, and you're like, dude, I've never seen anybody like this in public ever. Like, you guys just live in your houses and show up like one weekend a year. And I'm like, where did you guys get these outfits? I'm like, dude, there was crazy. like dudes like with like the neck cut out of the sweatshirt with like one shoulder exposed with like the string tank top and like the fanny pack and like the Auto Mix fluorescent boots. I'm like, are they? Did they sell this outside? Like look like dude, it was crazy.
And what's sad is like they've been planning that outfit for months too. I mean, they've been collecting the exact stuff and trying it out, and then they're just like, oh, this is it. This is the one for Saturday for the O. And they go there, and you're just like, I don't understand. There was a person, I'm still not convinced here. There was a person, Katie was with us at the Slingshot booth. There was a person who was wearing shorter shorts than Katie, which is really hard to do. I was just like, oh my God, do you see that chick's shorts? It's like her ass is totally hanging out of those things. I was like, and she just looks terrible. It's like she's just huge, and her jawline is obviously showing. I mean, I don't know what's going on. Like, no, that's a dude. I'm like, that's not a dude. Like, why would he be wearing like basically a thong? It's like, no, that's a guy. He's like wearing a thong.
That's hot. You know what? This is meaningless without pictures. I want to see pictures immediately.
Jesse hit mute again.
Yeah, he totally hit mute.
So what we know about Jesse so far is cherishes his tan and checks out dudes in thongs, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know.
has technological abilities of a small monkey.
Yes.
I'll tell you. You know what Jesse is good at? Texting. Jesse could text this whole thing into us, and it would be perfect.
I could. That's about all.
Yeah, he's a good texter. I'll definitely say that. He's a funny texter too. I'll get some funny ones that kill me from Jesse. So it's funny.
That's good.
All right. So what's on the docket today other than Tans and the Mr. Olympia? Like, what are we going to talk?
Wait, there's more to this show?
Yeah,
More to the show.
Do we got any questions? Like,
like what's up with the Power WOD? What's some of the theory behind that?
Oh no, we can't.
Doing at Combat Sports Academy. What's MC Hammer Curls?
All good questions.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, Power WOD is Jesse's website, and he posts workouts for people to get stronger. Wow. So Jesse, let's talk about getting strong.
Right,
so would you say that the key to strength is consistency?
Yeah, you know what? I don't like to quote myself. I think I'm an idiot, and I don't say a ton of quotable stuff. But one of the best answers that I've ever given, I think, was when someone asked me, like, what's the secret to getting strong, to whatever success? And I mentioned this to Brandon Lilly, and he kind of came back with something very similar. I said, I haven't missed a workout or a meal in about 7 years. So I think that's the key to success, is just that. And Brandon Lilly said it recently on either an interview or something. And he says, you know what? I wasn't a really smart kid in school. I wasn't the best student. He goes, but you know what? Every year, I always won the best attendance. He goes, and that's what I feel has helped me the most in my career as far as, weightlifting, powerlifting, and kind of getting strong, is just that I'm always there. And I may not be the smartest, I may not be the strongest, I may not be the best prepared, but I'm always going to be there, and I'm always going to work hard. So absolutely, consistency and hard work is going to get you 90% of the way. And then, that last 10% is going to really vary on what your goals are and what you're trying to do.
I would like to see Brandon's actual physical attendance records from school, because I'm not buying it.
No, he said he was talking about grade school. I think high school he kind of trailed off a little bit.
Okay.
He's got actually a great story. You know what I mean? Kind of similar to similar to a lot of people. He was getting in some trouble and kind of screwing around, and then someone that in the weight room was like, "You're being an idiot, man. Why are you doing this? You're screwing up. You need to do something." And that's how he kind of gym. So, but I would agree with you. I would be suspect of anything past 8th grade that he showed up at.
Yeah, the analogy I used, and it was pretty good, because Monday Night Football did a lot on Tony Gonzalez this week, and Tony and I went to college together, and I was best man at his wedding, and he's been a really close friend, and now here he is, 17 years, and I think he's number 5 on the all-time receiving records and the best tight end to ever play the game, first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, hands down, probably one of the top 10 guys to ever play in the NFL. And what people have no concept of is the amount of work that Tony does. Tony has not missed a workout. I mean, I think before and after every single practice, he catches 100 balls. So he catches like roughly 200 balls from the jug machine every practice off season. I mean, the amount of work and the amount of dedication that guy has put into his craft to be the best in the world. I don't think people have any concept of how much work it's taken to get to that level. I mean, not only is he probably one of the most gifted athletes I've ever seen, and has all the physical attributes that anybody would die for, but the guy also has like probably one of the greatest work ethics I've ever seen. So, I mean, you couple that with great genetics, and you have a guy that's probably one of the best athletes to ever walk the planet. So it was cool to see him, really being able to go out there and be a dominant player, because I mean, if I was still playing the NFL and I was in year 17, I don't know how dominant I'd probably be. I mean, I'd probably be good at getting somebody water or coaching somebody else. But I mean, to be able to go out and play as many plays and to be as physically productive as he is at year 17 is just phenomenal in the NFL. So
it's great. And while we're on that subject, and I mean, I think this is, we talked a little bit of hot topic stuff about, not Hot Topic, the store. Luke, settle down. The injections and everything. Let's talk about the concussion side of thing. I know, what was it, Dateline or Frontline just had a big thing about that. And John, you and I had talked about that a little bit. What give us an informed take on that, what you thought about the settlement, and what you thought about if you saw the Frontline thing.
Wait, Jesse,
took over the podcast, guys.
Jesse, you know how to turn on a TV?
I don't have a TV.
Oh, someone else just turned it on for you and put it in front of you?
Someone turns it on for me.
All right.
Okay, so I didn't see the Frontline or the Dateline deal, and I've been just because I haven't had an opportunity to sit and watch it. This has been smoked, but the settlement was interesting in that if you read, Pro Football Talk, and you talk to a lot of the fucking dipshit fans and a lot of the people out there, they think it's about greed with the players and that these guys are done playing and they want a piece of the pie. And that's actually not the case. The NFL fucked up in that they should have granted guys lifetime medical benefits. And that's all the players ever wanted. But the owners, being greedy, never wanted to grant the players lifetime medical benefits. The other big problem, too, is that they sat on a NFL brain study and a concussion study and a deal with the helmets that was done, I think, in 2002. And they sat on that information for about 5 or 6 years, and they knew that there was problems with concussions. They knew the helmets. They knew a lot of this stuff. So the settlement in the lawsuit was really about the fact that the NFL had acted nefariously and it hid this information from the players. And then all of a sudden, you got all these guys committing suicide. You got Junior Seau and Dave Dewar and Duerson and all these guys committing suicide, and through NFL pressure. And here's the deal. The NFL has done a great job, and they've spent millions upon millions of dollars of basically weaving NFL culture into the American fabric, and whereas it's kind of indistinguishable. I mean, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, Sunday Football, fantasy football. I mean, it is part of the American culture, and at the end of the day, it's a business. So, but they've done a great job not explaining it as a business. And as a player, you look at this thing, and it was the greatest job on earth. I'd love to do it. I can't say a negative thing about it. But as a player, I would have liked to have known that, how to define a concussion. When I came in the NFL, a concussion was defined as you'll get one when you get knocked unconscious. And then all of a sudden in 2008, they're like, no, they redefined it. And then all of a sudden I go in to get, the brain scans, and I go in for all the checks. And they asked me, they're like, well, how many concussions you had? And I was like, well, I was never knocked unconscious. And the guy kind of looks at me and he was like, well, they redefine concussions. And I was like, I was not aware. What's a concussion? It's any time that you lose sense, you feel like a ringing in your head, your vision goes funny. And he gave me this whole list, and he goes, how many concussions have you had based on this, by this definition? I'm like, probably 20 to 30,000.
Right.
And so the guy gives me this look, and that's when we went in for the scan. So I think what the players were suing about is, one is that information was hidden from us, so we weren't allowed to make an informative decision on your health. And the other big one is guys wanted lifetime medical, because all of a sudden they give you 5 years past. All of a sudden these, I'm in a focus group with other NFL players, and I'm sitting in there after getting all my scans, and there's like a 41-year-old ex-NFL player in there with Alzheimer's. Right. And I'm like, I'm 35, and I'm like, this dude's only 6 years older than me. He played 3 years in the NFL. He played 1/20th of the amount of time I played. And I'm thinking to myself, oh shit, this is getting serious. I got, you got insurance 5 years after. Guys are having trouble getting covered due to the injuries and a lot of these collisions. So I think, if they had just offered the players lifetime medical in the last CBA, it would have been they wouldn't have got into these problems. But then, then the lawsuit comes, and the players, 4,000 guys sign up to back this thing. And the NFL does a smart thing. They go in and they threw $750 million, which you think is roughly 1/20th of what they make in a year. And, they put this pool together, and they say, hey, you know what, if we give you this money, this is hush money, we'll put this pool together. Our doctors are going to have to okay people. And then the other key one is we never have to release any findings. This isn't an admission of guilt. We're just going to sweep this back under the rug, and we'll go back to being America's game. And now what's crazy, though, is if you turn on a game, look how many penalties are thrown for hits. I mean, if a guy exhibits any type of concussion or any type of drowsiness or takes a big hit, what do? They pull him out, they take it in, they check him. I mean, dude, I played in games where I looked over, and the guy next to me, dude, had taken a knee to the head and was looking looking at me and he's like, I can't see out of my right eye. I really don't know what play it is. Then he comes out, tells the trainer, and they're like, well, get in there. It's fourth. We got to win this thing. So, I mean, they're a lot more proactive now than they were, but, at what point? And I think the settlement's good because it'll hopefully get the guys the money. But the problem is that once that pool is dried up, then what? And then, I don't really like the fact that the NFL doesn't have to come out and there's no admission of guilt. I really don't think it's enough money. I think there should be more. And, that's, but, the lawyers jumped on it. The lawyers got a nice payday. And I think they saw it was easier to get money today and get money to the guys that needed it than it was to drag this thing out, because the NFL, it was never going to admit the guilt, and they have deeper pockets than us. I mean, believe me, I don't want to go into a court case against Arthur Blank and Jerry Jones and, Jeffrey Lurie and all these guys. I mean, these guys are multi-billionaires, and the reason they're rich is because they don't give their money away, and they sure as hell don't succumb to pressure to a bunch of dumbass NFL players. So.
So what do you think? I mean, is this obviously it's kind of a middle of the road decision, but what do you think about the refereeing the calls? Because I mean, so it's a lot of people are saying it's really kind of changing the game, that any hit like you said is going to get someone a penalty, or someone's going to have to sit out an extra game. And out here in the Bay Area, you have Bill Romanowski on the radio.
Well, he's a fucking crazy person.
He's a complete lunatic, absolutely. But he's telling people, he's just like, I would have never told anyone that I had a concussion, that I was, I had a stinger, I had anything. I wanted to play. That's what I wanted to do. He goes, and I can guarantee you there's more guys like me than the people who are whining and crying trying to walk off the field. So I mean, now that puts everything in a really weird position. You're like, okay, well, what's happening and you're still okay with it, and you're running your face into a wall and you're getting applauded and paid for it. And then on the back end, you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But I mean, he's not in the same case. But I mean, again, he's a complete crazy person.
No, he's a crazy person, and he has mental disorders. I mean, he probably needs some of that money. I think if they were to put him in there, I mean, I know Romo. I played against him. I've been in, I've seen him in a couple dealings. He's a fucking crazy person. So I think you have to really not completely discount it, but I take him with a grain of salt and actually believe nothing he says, personally. But in terms of dealing with the players, and the other huge thing is so a bunch of years ago, the NFL did a big study on necessarily what all these brain concussions and what a lot of these problems. And they had a guy that I know that did a study and went and analyzed blood work and a lot of the hormone levels of all the starting quarter, actually the first and second string quarterback of every NFL team. And every one of those guys' body actually produced almost no growth hormone. So he goes back to the NFL and he's like, here's the deal, man. These guys are relatively healthy, but he goes, none of them produce any growth hormone. And they looked at him and they were like, okay, so what does that mean? Well, the growth hormone is produced by the pituitary gland. From all the hits to the head, it's basically adversely affecting the pituitary gland. So, if you look at cognitive brain function and you start looking at a lot of the, how to necessarily preserve the brains and help people. I mean, a lot of this, stuff like, growth hormone supplementation, supplementing with testosterone, and really making sure the androgen levels are healthy. I mean, that's something we talk about constantly, like sleeping enough, eating enough, training properly, really, really safeguarding your hormone in your body and really your natural production and really that. And the problem is that, these guys probably realistically should have been on some form of medical supplementation for hormones. But of course the NFL can't do that. I mean, they're involved in, Congress wants them to do blood testing on GH. And so now it's like, everybody is so fucking wrapped up that it's somehow the drugs are what allowed Lance Armstrong to, magically do this, because without those drugs, he probably would have been, I don't know, not even.
He would have never got off his 10 speed, right?
Yeah. He would have never got off his 10 speed, or, it's, the reason that guy is the fastest guy in the world is because of those drugs. No, that dude is already really fast. I mean, right. It's kind of like the comment I said is that I never saw drugs make a bad player a good player. I never, saw any drugs all of a sudden, give somebody heart. The drugs don't give people heart. If you don't have the heart and the desire and the ability to do it, there's nothing that you can take that's going to magically give you that. But the problem is a lot of people can't wrap their heads around that because it's always an easy thing to say, well, yeah, I could squat 1,200 pounds if I had all those drugs. Sweet. I'll buy you all the drugs. Go squat 1,200 pounds. Oh,
that's
no.
What I loved when baseball was going through the whole thing and Joe Biden was up there talking about his baseball career, and I mean, just saying, I thought I was good, and I was okay with people being better than me. But then I found out that they were all taking drugs. And you know what? I think I could have been much better than them and all this other stuff. And, all the, being a baseball player coming from the other side of things when all this stuff was going around, especially out here in the Bay Area, like, what do you think about all this? I was like, you know what? If there was a drug that could have made me hit a curveball or a slider better, I would have taken all of them. It's like, but there's no drug in the world that is going to help you hit a good curveball or hit a hard slider. It just doesn't exist.
No, and I think people overestimate it too much. I mean, it's just what's hard for me is, I'm great with everything as long as everything's transparent on the table. And if it came into the NFL and they said, here's the deal, you're going to get paid X, but you have about an 80% chance to have some form of brain damage. You have, but we're going to do this and we're going to mitigate and we're going to safeguard it. And, you got to be honest. And I think if everything's laid out on the table, it's kind of like, just like everything, like you get in, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I mean, everybody gets in, everything's great. I just want to know what this looks like in terms of just explain to me the liability. And you know what? I can make an educated decision. The problem is when things are purposely left off the table, when people are deceived and all of a sudden it comes back later and changed. Like a guy for me that, now I look at it and I played at the end of the golden age because the game that I played, I don't know how you could play the game the way we played it then today. Like looking at it, I'm like, dude, these hits don't look that big. I mean, but then you're also watching, these different offensive lines that are playing. I watched Atlanta play this weekend, and not one of those guys was playing at a level that could have played on the offensive lines I played on. And I'm thinking to myself, why are these guys playing like this? Like did they not get the experience? Did they not get the hits? Did they not get the volume of training and practice to be able to go out and be competitive on Sunday? Because you know what? These guys are paying a lot of money to do their job. There's no way that these guys should be getting thrown around like this. Is that they couldn't find other people? Other guys were hurt? What's the reasoning? And you know what? I don't know if that the practices that they've gone so far the other way where now they don't hit as much in practice and it's harder to discern who's a player and who's not. Because, dude, like the way you earned your job in the NFL was, dude, you got to go out and fight some wars in practice. I mean, we had 3-hour practices. It was 9-on-7, 1-on-1 drills, and you literally you made your bones banging in practice and you got out to the game and you thought to yourself, Jesus, thank God this is so much easier than practice. Right. Maybe these guys are getting out in the games and it doesn't have the same volume of hitting. It's not the same level of intensity. I mean, I'll tell you this, based on the practice schedule, dude, now I know why Tony's able to play 17 years. I mean, but that guy played in the same places like with Dick Vermeil and these guys that I played with. And, it's just kind of an interesting, I don't know, I like looking at it. It's kind of like I'm torn because I want the players to be healthy. I don't want anybody to kill themselves. I don't want people to have to sit and listen to a doctor and say, you have brain damage, because hearing that is pretty overwhelming. And then you got to drive home and call your mom and be like, yeah, Mom, you let me play football and I did really great and everybody's really proud of me and everybody congratulates me. But now I just got done with a doctor who said that, my melon's a little messed up. So it's one of those things where, you got to make that decision. But I think if all the information's on the field, and they say to you, here's the deal, we're going to take care of you. You're going to have lifetime medical, you're going to do this job, but this is it is. If you can lay that out, I think it becomes much more manageable in my brain and I can wrap my head around it a little bit more. And then more so than like guys that are like, okay, you're done, cast you out. Here's 5 years insurance, kick rocks. Now you got to get it on your own. And, there was this pool of money for guys with brain damage, but it was only $750 million. It got eaten up in 10 years. And now, now it's done. Now go fuck yourself. Get out of here. And
so even if they had that out there, would you have paused for any more than 5 seconds to sign your first contract? And I mean, I'm talking to you. I mean, you've gone through it. You're a vet and you're a smart dude. I mean, do you think it's going to make anybody pause? I mean, I think you're right that they should lay it out and it should be all on the table and everyone's going to be honest about it.
Yeah.
But do you think there's going to be any one person who's going to hesitate to sign that contract?
Yeah, there's already been guys that have walked away. I know there was a running back, and there's been a couple players that have been like, no, it's not worth it to me. And you know what? I think for guys like, I think for guys that would look at it and say, hey, the juice is worth the squeeze, it's worth the gamble, it makes some sense. But you know what the problem is it's such our society is so instant gratification. And, it's cool that we got Playtick on here because he's got a PhD in psychology and knows this stuff. But it's like we have such an instant gratification society and, give me everything now, not realizing that when I'm 40, I might be in such a poor state of depression, in such a bad place. I mean, Junior Seau had one of the best careers and was hands down one of the best guys I ever faced. I mean, he gave me my welcome to the NFL moment, and also gave on the field and off the field when I saw him at the Pro Bowl, and he put his arm around me, bought me a drink, and we hung out for a few days. And he said, yeah, hey, stick it out with me. We're going to have a blast. You're going to be good at this thing. And, that was a guy that not only I remember going and lining up against him and thinking, Jesus Christ, this is fucking Junior Seau. And he ran past me like I was standing still. And yet I got to go to Hawaii and hang out with him. And I was like, dude, Junior's my boy, and it was like, that hit me so damn hard. How do you know? I mean, I could be, these guys, yeah, you could have a storied 17-year NFL career, have money and all this stuff, fame. Everybody knows who you are and be a local hero and be alone in your room and kill yourself. Like I think that type of, the NFL doesn't talk about that stuff because that's that dark stuff. That's that stuff that doesn't sell, that people don't put jerseys on their backs. People don't. And you know what it is? People don't want to know what's going on in the mind of a hero. Like, I mean, in their minds, like these are their heroes. These are their people. They buy trading cards and bobbleheads, and this is their fantasy football. And they want to remember these heroes the way they are. But the problem is, guys are fucked up. I mean, I remember reading Mike Webster's son wrote a really great deal about his dad, about training. And, his dad was sleeping in his car and he had like tons of paper and was like trying to write things down so he could like make sense of what was going through his brain. And Mike Webster was, dude, in terms of NFL players, Iron Mike was, not only a model for the way the game was played, but just was a badass of a dude and just, a titan in a way. And, it's a scary thing. And then, you know what? But here's the deal, man. All of a sudden you go do this job and, I don't look back. I don't regret a single moment of it. It was the most fun I ever had. And I love to do it. And somebody asked me yesterday, I did a talk yesterday, and these guys asked me about it. And I said, I got paid a lot of money to wholesale beat ass. And, there's nowhere on planet that I could do what I did and not get in trouble. So that's why I loved it. I love the fist fight. I love the battle. I love the one-on-one combat. And what's amazing is kind of like Fight Club, everything else, the volume gets turned down on everything else, same stuff. And, the problem is now you're having these realistic things where guys that you played with, contemporaries, guys that you played on the field with and you battled with, dude, all of a sudden these guys are killing themselves and people are having huge problems. And like, that's one of those things where you go in and you go for a drive and you think to yourself, Jesus, like, what am I going to do to not be that guy? Am I going to learn a foreign language? Am I going to get on? Am I going to speak? Am I going to read? Am I going to write? Am I going to create? Am I going to keep training? Am I going to make sure that I eat perfect? Am I going to go get my blood work done? Am I going to be proactive on everything? Am I going to figure out how to fix a brain? And am I going to be proactive? And unfortunately, not too many guys are doing that. I mean, I feel like, Luke always says, not only do we have the Power Athlete book to write, you almost have to say, write a book, like a manual, how to rebuild an NFL player after you get done out of this thing. What type of things are you going to do to limit your exposure and limit your problems and shit? Maybe that's the next book, Luke, is how to fucking rebuild us.
I think that was one of the things that hit me so hard when I was talking to you about that a couple months ago. It was like, well, how are you scared of it? You're like, you know what? I'm, always worried about it, but it's just, I think I took care of myself a lot better than anybody else did, eating wise, specifically just food and training than a lot of other people are. You had the knowledge of how to take care of your body. And I think that's a great idea. I think, it's really interesting to where you see all these stories hyped on ESPN of like Lamar Odom, all he eats is like gummy bears and like, Sour Patch Kids. And, and people are like, oh, that's the key to success. So I'm like, no, this is, a complete outlier. Not everyone can do this.
It's just like, there's genetic freaks. Like I remember, I've my whole life I've run into genetic freaks. I mean, I remember playing with a guy who ate nothing but chicken McNuggets that were, he would frost them in salt. So he'd like pour a bunch of salt out and like coat them in salt, and he would eat chicken McNuggets and eat fries and burgers. And the guy was like 4% body fat and ran a 4.4.
Right.
And, fortunately or unfortunately, I wasn't that guy. So in a way, I had to go and train, and I had to eat, and I had to figure all this stuff out to be there. But it was interesting is all of those things, I believe, safeguarded me from a lot of these problems, because you start looking at mass inflammation, and you start looking at how inflammation affects the brain, and, you just can't burn the candle at both ends. The way that the talk I gave yesterday was to some young military kids. And, I talked about it. I was like, don't wait till you're 30 to start worrying about this stuff. Like when the more proactive you are as a younger kid early in this fight is the easier it's going to be. And, the problem is that, people don't go to the doctor. People don't start to worrying until they start getting problems. Dude, I don't wait for something to go wrong for me to figure it out. Like I'm always looking at this stuff. I mean, in terms of movement and mobility, getting the blood work done, figuring this thing out. I know how to eat and making sure I stick to it, and realize like, dude, all those things are going to pay dividends down the road. It's just, but that's a huge part of our culture. I mean, people don't go to the doctor until something's wrong. People don't worry about anything until it happens to them. And I'm like, fuck, if by the time it happens to you, it's almost too fucking late. Like
right.
if you got to fix your diabetes, once you get diabetes, there's a good chance you're not going to fix the diabetes. So that's me on my soapbox.
And that might be even more true for brain issues. I mean, diabetes can be managed with things like diet. And once you jack up your brain and you start making bad decisions, it's hard to fix that brain damage. The brain is plastic, but like you said, John, giving people this information. One of the problems with giving people the information when they are maybe about to sign the contract is that they've probably already had 10,000 concussions and might not be in a position to make a accurate or effective decision on whether to sign or not.
Well, what's interesting is when I went and met with Dr. Jin, and we talked about this before, he was looking to show me different brains and was like, just by the mere wiring of the professional athlete brain leads to a certain impulsive behavior based on the firing pattern. And he goes, and then he was funny because he said, here's a set of criteria that are very specific to the, spec ops community and also the professional athletes. And it was like alcohol, excessive behavior, drinking too much. I mean, driving too fast. I mean, he listed out all these things. And as he was listing it out, I'm like, sounds like me and my friends. It was kind of hilarious to kind of talk to him. And he's like, that type of compulsive behavior is not only a certain personality type that works for these jobs, but also becomes exemplified and really amplified over time if untreated. And his big thing was with sleep. I mean, disrupting circadian rhythms causes, almost look like little noise in between the cycles of the brain. And he's like, this noise and these mess ups increase that kind of compulsive behavior, drugs and alcohol, mass inflammation from eating poorly, prescription drugs. I mean, he went through this whole thing, and you're like, and in my head, I'm hearing all these things, and you start working backwards and creating almost like breaking down the puzzle into pieces. And you're like, so here's the deal. The other big one too. And I just on a side note, whenever I hear NFL players when they retire and they start talking about the amount of prescription drugs that they were taking. I mean, Scott Fujita, who played with me in college and had a great career. I mean, Fuj retires and he was talking about as many painkillers as he was taking. I never I never had those problems, or I had the same pain and a lot of things were fucked up, but I never really took a high volume of painkillers, and like that was, I mean, we took them occasionally when they were given, but like guys are chewing like Brett Favre style. Like I honestly think that those prescription painkillers are being a huge problem on guys, and that's kind of another scary thing. So I mean, it's like more people are addicted to prescription drugs in this country than they are illegal drugs. Yep. And it's I had a sit down the other day with the Huntington Beach cops, and they were asking a bunch of questions. And I said to them, what's the biggest thing facing young people today? And the question is these things they call trail mix parties, where
this is horrible. This is so scary.
The kids go steal all the pill containers out of their parents' medicine cabinets, and they all get together and they dump all the pills into a bowl, and they shake it up, and then they take big handfuls. And you don't know what you're going to get. You might get some heart medication. You might get a Viagra. You might get a painkiller. You might get an aspirin and some cough syrup. And you wash it down with a glass of vodka. And these kids are literally doing this. And I was like, "Are you really?" And he's like, "Oh, we've had kids dying left and right. We've had he goes, it's a huge epidemic, these trail mix parties." And I was like, "Are you like? I would never even have fucking thought to do that."
Yeah, that's the same thing I thought when I heard it, and they were calling them farm parties up here. I was like, wait, why would you even do that? That doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to take something I don't know what it is.
And I like to think that on the between the two of you and myself, we were some pretty reckless kids growing up, and I would never even think about doing that. No. Insanity.
No, it's just so wild to hear, and just a lot of it's just to know what those pills can actually do for you. But I mean, I would have been like, nope, I'm going to be I'm a fag, I'm a pussy, whatever you want to call me, but I'm not doing that. That's crazy. That's just so crazy to me.
Well, the other big one is they have right now in Orange County, they have a big rash of somebody, there's a bunch of heroin has got a resurgence, and the reason
you know why? It's because the pain pills and the Oxycontins are more expensive now.
Yeah.
Well, what they did is they changed the Oxycontins to where you can't break them up and smoke them, and they don't work in the same way. So the kids were breaking down the Oxys and they could smoke them. They did something to them where they can't break them down now. So the kids are going, and that's why heroin has got a big resurgence in here in Orange County. And the cops were telling me that they've they found a 13-year-old girl that was like her first experience with drugs, and found her dead with a needle in her arm. And I'm thinking to myself, you're 13 years old and your first experience with drugs is I'm just going to fucking mainline heroin. Like,
no.
Right.
I like that's where I realized I'm like, maybe these NFL players aren't as fucked up. I mean, like what the fuck is going on? Like, I remember 13, like the idea of going like having a drink out of my parents' fucking liquor cabinet was like, holy shit. Like that would have been huge. I mean, people have been like, I remember a guy, smoking pot when I was in high school, and me being like, whoa, so I mean, it's crazy. I mean, maybe it's Grand Theft Auto, maybe it's the internet, maybe it's this crazy shit, maybe it's Miley Cyrus talking about Molly and on the radio. I'm like, I don't know what it is, but it seems as if things are escalating a lot faster than they ever have, or maybe it's just we're more apparent or we're more around it because maybe it's always been there. I mean, I don't know, but it's there's an old Chinese proverb: maybe you live in interesting times. Well, we're living in interesting times. So
have you? And I was reading, not to sound smart, but I was reading a couple articles in Forbes magazine. Have you guys heard of the Silk Road?
Yes, that's that.
I had never heard of this. I was so floored. This is a worldwide, just basically black market, buy drugs. Anything, completely anonymous. Yeah, it was amazing. The money that was being talked about and what was being sold and what you could get where is just astounding. I mean, like we even said, we were probably some reckless individuals growing up, and if I would have had access to this, this is just crazy to me.
Yeah, they were using Bitcoin to fund it all, and it was like this crazy layer. It was on the internet, you couldn't search it, and it was kind of a deal. And I think the main guy was a guy called the Dread Private Roberts, and he was kind of the ringleader of it. And this thing was basically a hot black market for any type of drug, anything you want, and it was completely anonymous. And the crazy thing is, the CIA or whatever governing body searches this stuff out here in the U.S. boss ended up busting the guy, and it was basically because he logged in, not like he logged in using a cell phone instead of some remote access, and they ended up catching him. But it kind of set these guys on fire a little bit because they thought that they had created something that was completely anonymous. And dude, the government, I mean, dude, our government's a lot sharper than we give them credit for sometimes with this stuff. But I read that whole thing on the Silk Road and was kind of tripping out. Seems like a lot of work, you know?
It's just amazing. I mean, it just shows you how much smarter, but also how much dumber people are than you.
Well, or the level of sophistication that they put into this thing, that if they had probably done it into some positive deal, they probably would have been way more successful. I mean, dude, the amount of brain power it took to fucking radiate this thing would have been just unreal. It's just, I'm at the point in life where I'm never surprised by anything. I read these different things and actually nothing surprises me. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it doesn't seem like anything surprises us anymore.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily surprised, but I was just, again, like you said and talked about, you know, I mean, if they would have put that brain power towards competing with Apple, we would be competing, you know, we'd be talking on the Silk Road phone, you know?
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. So what else is going on, guys? Anything else? I feel like we're dominating this thing.
No, it's all good stuff. We only had a couple things on the agenda, and it's just kind of let you guys ramble, which you're doing a great job of.
Thank you.
Denny, what's our time? How long have we been going?
We're at an hour.
Okay, well, how about this? Why don't we just answer Andrew's question?
Cool.
All right. So Andrew K asks, what's going on, Power Athlete Radio crew? In light of the recently awesome Beginner's Guide to CrossFit Football, I was hoping to get some input airtime on each of your favorite accessory movements, as well as sets and rep ranges. Do you take Jim Wendler approach to accessory lifts, i.e. hit your main movements like a powerlifter and then train your accessory movements like a bodybuilder? Or do you crush some more heavy shit for accessory work? Then he goes on to say, I'm aware that accessory work should be just that, accessory, and should not take work away from the daily WOD or strength WOD. In terms of programming, would you pick 1 week spot each day and program it accordingly? Like throwing in some dip work on Mondays? Or would you suggest us making Saturday a light conditioning weak spot day? Thanks for your continuing inspiration, Andrew K.
Before these guys go ahead and get in on all sorts of ways to do shit, if you're talking about specifically implementing with CrossFit Football, just tinker with it. Don't go overboard. Make sure it's still working. I mean, that's my advice. My personal favorite accessory work is anything chest. So I have
hamstrings.
No, John, I still can't fucking walk, man. It's not cool. That was not a cool joke to play on me. We'll get into that. But anything chest I hit, and I usually hit it Mondays and obviously Fridays before a cert if we're going, because you got to have big chest, big traps if you want to look smart. You know,
you got to get some arms going too.
You know, I'm not that into the arms. My arms are plenty big, you know. One of
my lifters was doing a bunch of curls on I think he did them like for like 2 or 3 weeks straight, like every day. I was like, you're doing a ton of curls. What's going on? He was just like, you know what I figured out, Jess? I was like, what? He goes, girls have tits, dudes have arms. I was like, I got to start doing some more curls. You're absolutely fucking right.
But
I like.
So Monday is my first day back. On my way back from Germany, I got sick on the plane and was unable to train, and then popped right off to Oregon. I didn't train for maybe 10 days, and John picks me up just at 9 a.m, picks me up. He's like, all right, you ready to go? I jump in the truck. You just don't ask questions with Wellborn because sometimes you don't want to hear the answers. And we end up going to our global gym that John's been training at, and he has me do like 90 reps of hamstring curls before we go into 3-second negative tempo squats, like 8x8 at 300 pounds. And after that, we do like 100 RDLs.
And lunges.
And I'm like, as soon as he tells me what we're doing, I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to do the squats with you, but then I'm going to bail out and do some chest and traps. And I got roped into this whirlwind. I woke up the next day. Like, I swear to you, I couldn't bend my knees. Like, I couldn't bend at my waist. I couldn't do anything. I was completely trashed. And I'm just now getting over it on Thursdays. And I don't know. John said basically his quads were smashed, but everything under my waist was basically worthless. Everything.
So we did we warmed up with some high rep hamstring curls, and then from there we went over and we'd basically work up to like an all out set of 8, where it was a 3-second countdown on the squat, then basically dynamically stand up as fast as possible. So I think we worked up to what I got. 405 for that, and then we went over, and then I think Luke was 315, and then we went over and jumped on the leg press and loaded up a whole bunch on the leg press and did a whole bunch of sets.
Oh yeah,
and then we did supersetted RDLs and dumbbell walking lunges. And dude, the funnier part is Luke couldn't move his hamstrings. My quads were fired. I didn't feel anything in my hamstrings. So it's one of those things where you can take 2 people, have them do the exact same workout, and everybody feels it in the different strain in the same way. And I'm like, that makes no fucking sense to me. But what we're playing with a little bit is, and so we told the listeners a little bit. I mean, in CrossFit football land, and really in terms of like, powerlifting, you look at a lot of sports, we always train the body as a complete unit. And just kind of going back and relooking and trying to revisit some stuff, I started kind of cutting my body into little pieces and just kind of like putting in some isolation stuff. And I found some like huge fucking discrepancies. Like I pulled, 585 for 10 the other day on deadlift, but yet 50-pound hamstring curls fucked me up so bad I can't walk for 3 days. So I'm sitting here being like, well, wait a minute, why can I deadlift fucking almost 600 pounds for reps and I'm fine, and yet some isolation hamstring curls fuck my whole world up? Or I do some like bench heavy, and then I go over and I do some chest flies, and like my chest is so sore I can't do a push-up after. So it's kind of interesting that you get to this point where you've done all this volume of training, and then you go back in time a little bit and you start kind of isolating some things. I'm sure Jesse's run into this stuff too, that you get to this point where you've built this big machine, and then you have to kind of start looking for little weaknesses. And unfortunately, we're really good at the movement patterns we're good at, and you put us in some different movement patterns, like some single jointed stuff that we never do, and all of a sudden the whole fucking world comes to an end. And so I was testing it with Luke, and I was like, well, let's do some shit we never do. And all of a sudden it's fucking frying us. And I'm like, shit, we either got to build the machine better, or we got to figure out how to incorporate some of this stuff. And I know Jesse you use a lot of single jointed stuff and use some machines in your assistance work, which is, fucking some classic bodybuilding, and, it works, it fucking works.
And I mean, hopefully this makes sense to what Andrew, who was asking the question. I'm a firm believer that your assistance work should in fact be assistant stuff, but it's not something that you're just going to kind of gloss over. It should have a point to it. It's when I'm dealing with some of my guys, some of my athletes, I can just throw out, you need some more hamstring work, you need some more this and some that, and they're smart enough and dialed in enough to I know you love that term, John, dialed in.
Yes.
So they're dialed in enough to know that, in their mind, these 3 exercises kind of work for them. So I always encourage people who ask me about, accessory work is just really to make a list, throw down just like kind of what John did, what you have access to, and just start, writing it down. Hamstrings. I have a hamstring curl machine. I can do band hamstring curls. I can do RDLs. I can do this. So when it's just like, okay, I did my squats. Now what do I need to do? Well, I have these 3 body parts that I need to kind of address. Okay, just take 3 exercises and kind of go from there. And what I also like what you guys really did is something that I've been doing for a long time, and it's just basically based on you're never always going to want to train your weakness. So, and a lot of times what we'll do is we'll always kind of put that at the end of a workout, which is always horrible, because that's the stuff that you really start to get talking to someone, and then someone drifts away, and then you drift away, and they're like, I forgot to do it again. So what we started to do a while ago, and something that I'm really guilty of, is ab work for me I could forget about and never ever do. But once I started to force myself to do that before a workout, everything got I got so much more stable in my squat, so much more stable. and had a lot more hip action at the top of my deadlift, and just got, so much more tight and connected kind of throughout, big movements. So, I mean, if you can find out, and if you know that you had some knee injury or you had something out, put that before your workout and make sure that that's paramount. You start to address that. It's not, you don't have to do, like if we would have switched your guys' workout, put the RDLs before your squats and then the hamstrings after them, it would have been a complete different workout. You guys probably would have been negative, 50 to 70 pounds on your squats when you really went after it. But doing, some leg curls that are just start to wake you up and start to get you moving, it sounds like John was just being a jerk to you, Luke, making you do like 90 or something along those lines. Sounds like he's been doing this for a couple of weeks.
We were doing like, dude, I was ready. I mean, we were doing sets of 25 and like pyramiding up. We did like 25, 15, 12, 10. And like, I know Luke doesn't do hamstring curls, and all of a sudden he like gives me this look like he wants to throw up because he's got so much blood in his hamstrings. And I'm like, sweet. Now we're going to do some slow, accentuated, fucking quick turnaround squats, and we're going to work up to something heavy. And it was fucking spicy. But you know what? Like it's, what I realized over time is that, everything works, but not everything works forever. And that you got to constantly, for me personally, when and Jesse's in the same deal, we fucking trained for so long that, you have to constantly be, changing some things and always adding kind of a different movement and kind of changing the everything up slightly. But the problem is that most people that we're dealing with, like, do not have 20 years underneath the bar. So what's interesting when I look at assistance work, I really prescribe the assistance work based on how much training time you have. Like for people that are relatively new to training, which to me is, 2-3 years in being consistent, like your assistant work might be just under the bar. Like, there's, like it's a trip when you look at like the West Side guys, for example, they do all this assistance work, and even Jim Wendler talking about assistance work. They also don't talk about the fact that these guys have squatted this movement thousands of times. They have literally reinforced this movement pattern to the point where it's actually pattern overloading them, and now they need to go and get other things to do. So I think the problem is, and this is, the world over and not just CrossFit, everybody always wants to look and think, okay, what is the best guy in the world doing? Okay, bodybuilding. I'm going to look and see what, is it Paul Heath or
Phil?
Phil Heath that won. I'm going to do what Phil Heath does. Little they know that Phil Heath has been training for 30 years and has a completely set of genetic factors that, he's the guy that wins the Olympia isn't, has a certain set of genetic gifts. I mean, what he's doing might not work for you today, but it might work 20 years from now. So it's like we were working with Jeff Gonzalez, and, Jeff is, a Navy SEAL, but he doesn't have a ton of time in terms of basics. Like he's weightlifted, but not like we have. So I was looking at him like an amateur, and we put a squat program together for him. And for his assistance work was more squats. So he would squat on the program. And then for his assistance work, he was doing like more squats. And then his assistance work was more deadlifts. And we were literally overloading it. All of a sudden we get to the end of 12 weeks and he literally is like PR'd and smashed everything. And he's like, I would have never thought it worked. I'm like, dude, you just needed to learn the movements. Like the problem is that the strength program we put you on wasn't giving you enough lifts. Just by giving you more lifts and stressing it, you fucking crushed everything. And he was like, I would have never thought it worked. And I'm like, well, yeah, it wouldn't work. But when anybody asks you, your assistance work is actually lifting more. So it's kind of very specific to the people, and you have to realize that. Like I saw a quote this weekend on Facebook that was from, I guess, James Fitzgerald had a training camp, and in it they asked him about the reverse hyper, and he said, yeah, I like reverse hypers. It's a good place to eat my lunch. And I kind of like, I kind of chuckled and laughed and thought, man, I love to use the reverse hyper. I mean, would I ever say, hey, I'm going to use the reverse hyper instead of squatting and doing my basic lifts? No. But is it a tool? Is it a good assistance work? Has it helped me get up volume? Has it helped me deload my back and fix some things? Have we brought in people that have had back surgery and helped them get movement? Yeah. And it's a valuable tool. It also can double as a good place to eat lunch because it's kind of high up there, but I would never say that's the best thing about it. So, but you know what? That's a big part about being a coach and understanding and following a program. And Jesse's as good as anybody in the world is right now about getting people strong. And, it's the reason that I went to Jesse for a long time and he helped me with my training, just because I always say, man, if you're programming for yourself, your coach is an idiot. So you got to go out and search out some of the best people in the world and, see what they're doing and have them help you and assess you and be real honest with you. And this is what you need to pick up on and what you can fix. And that's why
all coaches need coaches.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like, it's boring.
Yeah, to kind of go back to, what you just talked about as far as, the main movement being your actual assistant movements at the time. I've always dreamed about buying an island and calling it 5x5 island. And anyone who, thinks that they're going to go and train needs to spend 4 years on 5x5 island with just a barbell, where they're going to squat, they're going to deadlift, they're going to overhead press, they're going to bench, and do all their assistance movement with a barbell. After their, stint on 5x5 island is done, they're allowed to come back to the mainland, and then they can start asking questions about assistance movements and reverse hypers and doing all this other stuff. Because the reality of the situation is, just as you talked about, is just everyone wants to specialize so quickly. Everyone wants to be Phil Heath, and everyone wants to do what these people are doing, who their heroes are, and that's great. And, your point is directly right on, is that, it's not about what they are right now. It's about the road that they took to get there. If you would really ask Phil, and you would be honest with you, and I'm pretty sure he is, he's a pretty cool dude. That guy, I believe that guy was a collegiate lacrosse player. He has some sort of an interesting sports background, or a basketball player, something along those lines, turned bodybuilder. So this guy has been just athletic his whole life. So, it's not, it's not a complete mistake that he is there. He's had, again, genetic gifts, but he's also just really worked very, very hard in order to get there. And a lot of people don't want to do that. They just want the end product. But, it's taken him 20 years to get there. John was ragging on me. Someone asked me a question about how long it took me to, pull 800 pounds. And I said roughly about 32 years, which is about how old I was in order to do it. And, I knew it was a trick question when it was asked to me, because someone's trying to prove a point or something along those lines. And I thought, what's the most honest answer that I can come up with? And I was just like, what, this is the right answer, and if anyone else is going to tell you, that there's some, well, I've only been training for 3 years. Like, yeah, that's cute. That's nice. But, everything that you've done to lead up to this point, has also aided for you to get here. Just every little decision that you made, every sport that you played, every coach that you had do some weird exercise. Some guy who, used to do a bunch of stretches with you at a football game or whatever it is, got you to this point and prepared you for that deadlift or that bodybuilding show or whatever it really is. So people just need to, accumulate a lot of volume, a lot of reps in order to really go ahead and express their, physicality in any sort of way that they want to.
Dude, the kids I worked with yesterday, their biggest question about nutrition was what supplements they should be taking.
Right, exactly.
And I almost had this out of body fucking experience where I was like, you know what supplements are, right? And they were like, what? I'm like, they're supplements. Like there's supplement to something, like where are you deficient? And like the way I look at it is like assistance work is assistance work. There's no way to supplement out a bad diet. There's no way to out assistance a shitty program or shitty effort. Like at the end of the day, like I don't know how to, like if you don't have enough time under the bar, if you haven't done it, if you haven't put in the hours, there's no amount of fucking assistance work. There's no magical assistance work that's naturally going to fix it. Like people are always like, oh, my press sucks. What type of assistance work should I be doing? And I'm like, fuck, I don't know. Let me see your press. Like, I can't tell you if it's just the fact that you suck at pressing or you have weak triceps. Is it the fact that you don't understand body position? You don't know how to use your body? Is it that your shoulders are weak? I mean, it's all these things. And so we try to develop a well-rounded program that really hits all these things universally. But at the end of the day, like there's no substitute for just time underneath the bar. And I think that's what is become kind of, but this is the kind of the CrossFit thing where it's like, hey, we're going to magically develop all of these 10 principles of fitness. We're going to magically develop all these at the same time. But dude, there's I can get you in the best shape of your life in about 6 to 8 weeks, but I can't get you strong in 6 to 8 weeks. I can't teach you the lifts in 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, I can get you proficient enough to where if you walked in somewhere, people would think you've done it before. But to really understand the minutia and like really put in the expert, I mean, that's why guys train. That's why guys train an entire lifetime to be the best, is because it takes time. It just, that's it.
And I always like to tell people who are, when I have newbies or whatever, and then this is going to go right along to, the coaching style that you're talking about. Like, I'm very adept at how people move and how to correct it and how to make it better. And, it's taken me a long time in order to develop that. But if you watch me actually coach people, I don't really do a bunch of anything. It's just, do more of this, more of that. And there's a great story about Tony Gwynn and Ted Williams, both baseball players, again, kind of showing my background here. And Ted Williams was probably one of the best hitters ever, if not the best hitter ever. And Tony Gwynn was telling a story about him as a coach, and he was probably the worst coach ever. So best hitter, worst coach. When he would be telling guys what to do, he'd be like, hey guys, what you're doing is you're hitting the top right-hand corner of that ball when a two-seam fastball is coming. What you guys need to do is hit the bottom left-hand corner of this ball. If you're able to do that and keep your elbow in and kind of have a little bit of an uppercut, that's how you're going to hit the home runs, boys. That's what, is going to get us those two-run home runs, and that's what's going to win us ball games. And some guy raised his hand and like, you can see quadrants of the ball. And he's just like, what? You guys can't? Like, yeah, you guys just need to hit more. You guys just need to hit more. Well, and that was the answer for a lot of everything. And I mean, that's kind of what I fall into. I fall into the Ted Williams syndrome where I'm like, just press more, just squat more, just deadlift more. There's not, I'm worried about my background. I was like, you know what? You just need to do more. Just, your back is rounding, not because of, one thing or the other, lack of mobility. It's because you're not strong. Just go get stronger a little bit, and then we can talk about the other stuff as we go.
Yeah, that sounds like old man Zangus, the old guy we used to train with. That was his answer for everything. I was like, well, my squats suck. He's like, well, you're obviously not strong enough. and I remember everything with like, it was like one of those things where I was like, well, if my deadlift gets up and my squat gets up, I should be able to run faster. He's like, well, yeah, that'll help if you're stronger, but you're not. And it was just such a hilarious deal. And I remember I thought he was just being a fucking old asshole. And then I got older and I realized I'm like, yeah,
I am that old asshole.
Yeah. I basically morphed into this old dick, and it was, but you know what, like, that's another big thing too. And this is the other problem with the internet is, everybody's so fucking sensitive on the internet. I'm like, you tell somebody that and they say, fuck you on the internet. And like, when I was a 14-year-old kid and I had to go over there and I was like, so what's the problem? He's like, well, you're really fucking pitifully weak. It wasn't like I could have gone over and typed on my keyboard and blogged and been like, my coach just said that I'm a fucking weak. I'm 14 years old. Yeah. Every 14-year-old's weak. Get fucking stronger. So it's like, that's part of the, like, I just never in my life have seen people that are more sensitive. And I think that ability to hide behind the keyboard, and it's something that, I talked to Sean Waxman about he's like, man, I don't know how to coach you unless you come here and let me work with you. So I talked to him this morning, and he's like, all these people want to send me videos and have me send them programs, and I help them. But he's like, at the end of the day, like, it's me working with you and me seeing these things and progressing and helping you in this journey. And I don't know how to take you on this journey virtually. And he's like, I wish I could have like a webcam and this. And he's like, it's people want to do it from the comfort of their own home, and it doesn't work. So, but I'm hearing the barbarians at the gate, so I'm going to have to sign off, guys.
All right. Sounds good.
That's good, man. Great show.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
Thanks so
Jesse.
much for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Oh, dude, we'll get you back on. It was a good time.
Cool.
All right. See you guys. See you, Denny.
Thanks, guys. Yep. Take care. Talk to you next week.